Hello everybody, my name is Katie, co-founder of Unfold, and welcome to this 10-minute tune-up. Today we're going to be talking about an achy low back, and it's a topic near and dear to my heart. I struggle with this from time to time. It's why I started learning about yoga through more of a therapeutic lens and teaching these types of classes. Also, this is the #1 complaint that we get from many of our desk workers and members who are either working from home or working in an office or just sitting a lot in any capacity. So today we're going to go over 3 different office-friendly yoga poses that you can do to relieve an achy back. And just know that these are just 3. There are so many things that you can do, and there are so many different layers of back pain that are important to consider. There's not only the physical body, but there's also mental and emotional stress, there's injuries, there can be problems with the joints, with the discs, with the muscles, and it's really a complex topic. All right, so these are 3 poses that I like to just loosen up the spine, loosen up the low back, get the hips moving, which can often free up the low back. And I'm excited to share them with you today. I'm going to move my chair back so you're able to see. We're going to start seated, and we're going to begin with some movement of the pelvis. Now, the pelvis is really the foundation of our spine. So sometimes just getting a little bit more movement and freedom in the hips can go a really long way. I've got my dog here with us. I'm going to scooch a little closer to you. Okay. So begin by coming to the edge of your seat, and please take your hands right onto your hip bones. This is called a pelvic tilt. All I want you to do is rock the pelvis backwards, kind of like you're scooping your tailbone under, and then do the opposite. Tip your pelvis forwards. Okay, this is called a posterior and an anterior tilt of the pelvis. Most of us spend a lot of time rocking back into that posterior tilt. So just getting this unlocked can go a really long way in freeing up the hips and the low back. Okay, keep going here. I'm going to start to link this to the breath. Inhale as you come forward and exhale as you rock backwards. Feel free to push pause and practice this movement. Or we're going to pause right in the center, and we're going to go from side to side. So actually hike your hip up so you pour all your weight into one hip at a time. Really try to initiate this movement from your pelvis. So I'm not leaning my upper body, I'm going from side to side. I like to imagine my pelvis like a big bowl, a basin, and we're tipping water out one side and we're tipping water out the other side. Okay, now pause. Now we're going to combine those 2 movements together in sort of like a circle, and we're going to revisit those 2 movements in some of our yoga poses in a minute. All right, so start by rocking your hips back. Then you're going to pour your bowl out to the right, lift up the left hip, and then tip the pelvis forward. So it might feel like you're sticking your butt out a little bit. And then go the other way. Lift up the right hip and rock it back. Okay, keep going. And this pelvic circle can feel a little awkward in the beginning, but the more you practice it, the more natural it feels, the easier it becomes. So we're moving the lumbar spine, the low back, through a really nice spiral. This movement can be big, it can be small. All right, and then we're going to go the other way. Okay, rock it over to the left. If any of you have one of those big stability balls that you sit on in your office, this is a really wonderful pose to do on your stability ball. Okay, so right away, I feel a lot of lovely circulation in my low back, a lot more freedom in the pelvis. Okay, very good. Let's pause here. Next up is seated pigeon, and we're going to do seated pigeon with that posterior and anterior tilt. So place your right ankle on top of that left knee, bring your hands back onto your pelvis, and go ahead and begin. Rock the pelvis back, and then rock the pelvis forward. It's a little harder to tip your pelvis forward in this pose because the outer hip muscles are stretching. So if you feel like you're not getting as big of a movement, that's okay. So you can keep your hands on your hips. I like to take my hands onto my shins like this. It gives me a little bit more leverage. Do a few more. Deep, full breaths. Good. Okay, pause. Let's change sides. I'm going to show you from a side angle so that you can get a feel, if my dog lets me. All right, same thing, second side. So rock back and then forward. So you're really trying to get this range of motion right in the low back pelvic area. Maybe grab onto your shins so you can get a little leverage. And you'll know that you're getting the right movement in your pelvis if when you tip your pelvis forward, you feel more of a stretch through the hip muscles. Let's do a couple more. Good. All right. Pause that and release. So we've gotten into the lower back, we've moved the pelvis through that lovely spiral, and we've stretched the outer hip muscles, which can feel lovely for the low back if it's tight and achy. Next, we're going to do some stretching in the front part of the hip. So sometimes the front part of our hip can become overly tight and short, and that can create some achiness in the low back. I know that's definitely true for myself. So stand nice and close to your desk or your chair. Take a generous step back, and we're going to start in a high lunge. So the front knee is bent and the back leg is straight. And then bend your back leg a little bit. So both of the knees are slightly bent. Bring your hands to your hips. And let's revisit that pelvic tilt here. So as you tuck your tailbone under, you're going to feel more of a stretch through the front of that right hip. Good. And again, all of these poses have this dynamic aspect of the pelvis, which feels really nice for me and a lot of our members, I know. All right, keep going. Now we're gonna keep with the same movement. I'm just gonna show you from the front, and we're gonna do that side to side little lateral shift. You kind of gotta imagine like the hula. So I'm still in my lunge, but I'm shifting the hips to the right and to the left, tipping that bowl of water from side to side. Good. All right. Pause with your lateral movement. Let's step forward and do the other side. So left foot back. Okay, high lunge here. Bend your back leg a little more than you normally would. Tuck the tail under. And then tip the pelvis forward. So start with that pelvic tilt, posterior, anterior tilt. Keep breathing. Let's do a couple more like this. I'll show you from the front. You keep going. You can always hold on to your desk or your chair if you feel like you need a little more support. Okay, we're going to pause that and then side to side. So you're trying to get this movement from the hips. Hike one hip up, hike the other hip up. Pour that bowl out to one side and then to the other. So you sort of feel the connective tissue in the front of that hip moving, gliding, stretching a little differently. Good. All right. And then let's pause here. Go ahead, step forward. We're going to come into mountain pose. Just let the arms relax. Have your feet a little wider than mountain pose, and just very gently twist here. Okay, just kind of let go of all of that rocking and alignment. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Just let it go. Shake the arms a little. Big breath in and out. Good. Okay, now pause here. Place one hand right on the low belly and then your other hand right in your low back. So you're kind of sandwiching your torso. Close your eyes. I'm just going to spend the last minute or so breathing. Okay, the way that we breathe impacts our core stabilization. It impacts the health of the spine. It impacts our stress levels, our nervous system, which is all connected to back pain. So just slow down the breath and think about moving the breath deeply into your lungs and sensing a fullness of breath, not only in your lower belly, but also your lower back. Can you feel the breath expand into your back? And maybe it's just very subtle, and if you can't feel it at all, that's okay. Just imagine the breath going there. And then bring the hands to the sides of the waist and breathe laterally. Think about feeling the sides of the waist expand as you breathe. We'll do a few breaths here together. Okay, and then just let the arms rest. Take a few more deep, gentle breaths here. Notice any sensations through the lower back, through the front of the hips, through the sides of the hips. And slowly open your eyes, bring your attention back into the space. That concludes this week's 10-minute tune-ups. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope your low back and your hips feel great. Please reach out to us with any questions that you have, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.